Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to DBR Dragon Ball Rewatch on CBR, where we're going through every single episode of Dragon Ball from the very first until the very last. It's going to be a long road. As usual, I'm John Greenall, and I'm joined by
Alex Maglio.
And I'm Sam Stone. And boy, oh boy, John, we've got episode 8. You want to give him the facts?
I do. We are doing episode 8, the Kamehameha Wave. Oh, God, I'm going to mess that saying up several times. Japanese air date, April 16th, 1986. American air date, October 28th, 1995. And we're adapting 3 chapters here. Fanning the Flames, Kame, 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 Chameleon. And at 6s and 7s. Yes, plot this episode pretty simple. Goku and Chi-Chi go find Master Roshi, take him back to Fire Island to put out the fire that has been raging there. Lots of stuff happens here.
Before we start on the episode, one quick question.
Yeah.
How many times did you, as young people, go out into the street or the backyard and try to do a Kamehameha? How many times did you try? Because I know I did.
I was part of the record-breaking Kamehameha Wave at San Diego Comic-Con 2018, I think,
That's
with
dope.
Sean Schemmel and everything, where the record number of people did Kamehameha Waves. Yeah, yeah. I mean, but I guess that doesn't answer the answer is a lot. The answer is a lot. That and Hadoukens, because it's the
Oh yeah.
same. Yeah,
My lawyer says I have to answer that for future. Just no, we're not talking about what superpowers I tried to emulate as a kid.
yeah. Fair enough.
But talking about but now about the episode.
There's a lot of important stuff. A lot of important stuff that happens in this episode.
Important stuff and lots of nonsense, which is this beautiful combination.
Also, the first time Goku pimps out Bulma, which continues to happen, so much so that at the end of Dragon Ball Z and at the Buu arc, he tries to do it again when she's married.
With her husband right there.
To defend him, it does seem to keep working.
I mean, but in terms of some of that, so just as a quick recap, first on-screen Kamehameha, first display of Master Roshi's martial arts prowess, including his max form.
Buff Roshi.
Goku's first Kamehameha. More about the Gohan lineage. Roshi agreeing to teach Goku, and Goku tacitly agreeing to marry Chi-Chi.
So before, I do want to talk about Goku's first Kamehameha Wave because this moment and many moments later, so I have this theory about the Saiyans basically having the powers of the Sharingan. For those of you who don't know Naruto, which I'm assuming all of you do if you're watching this, the Sharingan gives you the ability to copy any ability that you see, and I'm kind of under the impression that Saiyans just have this ability because we see it with Goku with the Kamehameha. We see it with Vegeta when he does the Destructo Disc during his first fight. It happens so many times that I'm kind of convinced there's just a thing that Saiyans can do. I don't know if Toriyama thought about that, but I'm just kind of convinced that that's a thing that they can do.
I think, because I don't know if it's necessarily isolated to Saiyans. I think it's isolated to this person is a Bamf. I mean, because Boo learns the Kamehameha Wave from watching Goku do it once. Frieza learns the Destructo Discs after being on the receiving end of one.
And
they can explain it away with Gero and Cell. They're well, they're just programmed that way. It's oh, okay.
I love it's so funny to me now that this sort of iconic move is debuted, or Goku's version of it is debuted via a 2-beat joke. Because literally, it'll take 50 years, blows up the car. It's that, ladies and gentlemen, the most iconic move in anime history and his most iconic user, debuted as a one-off gag.
Yeah.
I would say if you run a quiz night at any bar, you need to throw in the question: what was the first thing Goku killed with his Kamehameha Wave? And then everyone will get it wrong, and then you get to laugh at them. Yeah, he killed a Citron.
I mean, also Yamcha and people know about the Kamehameha Wave. Yeah. Before we see it, they're oh my God, this is what this is. And it I also like that they downplay Roshi when we see him again in this episode, because he straight up takes one to the dome from Chi-Chi pretty early on.
Yeah, I love that because that whole sequence is, this episode features 2, clearly Toriyama has things he likes and he's going to reference them lovingly, because the Chi-Chi pulls off her head spike and throws it forward. that is a literal shot-for-shot remake of an Ultraman attack, which is Ultra
Yeah.
7's Ice Slugger or Space Boomerang, complete with the same background that's used when he uses it. And keep in mind, Ultraman 7 was in the 60s, and Ultraman wasn't on television at this point. So Toriyama was just like, I really like Ultraman. Here, children, you can't watch this show anymore. Have an extended reference.
It's a deep nerd cut right there.
Also,
Like,
did you notice that when he pulls the blade out of his head, it makes the Pokeball noise?
it did. I did notice that. I was because that is like a sense memory for me, but it was like I know that noise. Like
Mhm.
every interaction with Master Roshi in this episode, I think is fantastic. I love Ox King like falling to the ground and bowing before his master and begging for forgiveness from, the many murders that we talked about in the last episode. I love like Master Roshi like having that interaction with Oolong that happens later. I love him just wanting to go on a romantic walk with Bulma and Bulma just being like, that's disgusting. And Goku being super cool with it. I do want to point out one little animation thing here. Chi-Chi's size changes so much when they're on Master Roshi's island. She starts at being like roughly Goku's height, then she's like twice as tall as Goku, then she goes back to it. It's a very weird animation thing I noticed.
Maybe she has
But-
Ultraman powers.
She has Ultraman power. She's just changing size,
To be fair, these block of 2 episodes of the last one as well have a few weird repeated animation issues. You'll notice if you keep an eye out, Bulma's tights sometimes vanish.
They are sometimes gone.
In the dub, they replace that by just painting her legs blue, but they forget to do that sometimes. If you notice when Goku does his first wave, he has 2 right hands. They've just mirrored the hand. And there's what's the other one? There's another brilliant. I've forgotten what it was. There's at least one more animation issue that comes up during this.
One of the more nonsensical moments that I enjoyed, and I had to reread the manga because I could have sworn it was filler. When they stop and ask the dolphin for directions,
Yeah.
that's actually in the manga. Like that isn't just something that they manifested to help provide context to the opening of the episode. They actually talked to this weird high-pitched dolphin person. So now we know that there's like even more facets of the animal kingdom in the Dragon Ball world that are anthropomorphic or at least sentient on par with humans. So
It's so disturbing when you really think about it a little too much.
it's just such a fun kind of like aside. You mentioned, Alyx, you were mentioning about the Roshi wanting a romantic stroll around his island. As you can imagine in the manga, he's not asking for the romantic stroll around the island, and he
No.
gets what he asks for in both the episode and the manga, albeit through a doppelganger.
Yeah.
In the manga, he asks for Pafu Pafu, which I recommend if you're at work, do not Google. This is also presumably something Toriyama enjoys because Oolong, when in his Yakuza Walt Disney form, engaged in Pafu Pafu with Bulma. So again, Toriyama is putting his tastes fully up front. But yeah, the Moonlight Walk is, I will say, I do love the bit with him and the turtle when he's first asking Goku and he's trying to come up with excuses. He's like, oh, can't a man near his end have a one bit of fun? You're nowhere near dying. I just
Turtle's
love
a
how
narc.
I love that turtle. It's such a fun relationship they have.
Turtle is like his AA sponsor. You just get like this energy off of Turtle where he's just like, they're gonna make you turn in your 10-day chip, man. Like you gotta get back on the path, get back on the wagon.
There's a reason you live on this island.
Yeah.
You are here because you're not allowed within 50 feet of a school, man. Come on.
Which for Roshi and Oolong.
I would say with this episode, Roshi isn't that bad. I think because they do a good job with the Ox King stuff of making him feel like he's had quite a big life. So like he's not just this one note gag. He's like, oh, he has had this big experience with Gohan, and he does know these magic abilities. It makes him feel like a pervert with layers.
One thing I was surprised with Roshi in the manga that they cut out or didn't, include in the anime, when he lands from the spinning turtle at Fire Mountain, in the anime, he looks cool until Ox King goes in front of him and he, falls over because he's dizzy. In the manga, he throws up. Like he just vomits in front of Ox King when Ox King's like, "Oh, master."
Also, let me point out that isn't just a spinning turtle. that is friend to all children, Gamera, who is both
That's baby
very
Gamera.
neat and made of meat. Yeah. Toriyama just introduces Gamera, the character from who was introduced in the 1965 Gamera the Giant Monster. Gamera was still a franchise at this point, but no,
Baby
Toriyama,
Gamera.
yeah, just like hit your copyright. No, it's mine.
Man, okay, look, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure exists. We cannot talk about copyright in Japanese anime when you still have Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap as a character.
Yeah, and to be fair, Gamera was also in Doctor Slump, so I think it was just Toriyama just like Gamera. And yeah, that's how Gamera flies in his movie. He tucks in, lights himself on fire, and spins.
But Toriyama's a huge otaku, right? I
He
mean,
really is.
we're getting the kaiju references here, the Sentai references here, Super Sentai, which will obviously show up with like the Ginyu Force. You know, there's just so much. I mean, he's just letting his freak flag fly, and we love it.
We salute.
Yeah. You tell you a thing like he got confirmed you get to do more episodes. He's like, well, great time to put in all my favorite things.
I do want to talk a little bit about Roid Roshi for a little bit because I love that sequence of animation with Roshi like beefing up and all the reactions of the other characters being like whoa, and then I love the way the Kamehameha looks here, like as the energy is like building through him and the circle that like forms around his palm, kind of like Doctor Strange. Because I don't believe that happens again, but it looks so good and it makes it feel like such an intense like this is the pin drop moment of everything goes silent and a natural disaster is about to happen. Also, his sunglasses change shape and become way cooler. They become Kamina glasses for a little bit. It's such a good sequence of showing this like otherworldly power that Roshi has.
The theme is kind of sci-fi, how it's animated. It looks more like it came out of like a sort of sci-fi film. One thing I do like with how when he bulks up, compared to how we see him do sort of maximum power later, is that he looks horrific in this version. Like he's not proportional. It happens in bits. It captures that this is something not of this earth. This isn't something easy or normal. This is someone channeling some weird dark magic here, and I love that for this power.
Would you say does this count as the first combat transformation ever in a Dragon Ball thing?
Yes, I would say that it does. I would say that this is the first combat transformation.
Yes, because you can't even count because Oolong had to retreat, then transform, then start again. So that was two different fights.
Yeah, and it's like a feint for him more than anything else.
Yeah.
I do have a question though, because when we see Roshi's back, I know that the pads on his shoulders are probably for arthritis, but the 6 dots he has along his spine, like that, like does anybody know what that is? Am I just showing my age?
It's acupuncture.
Okay.
Yeah, like cupping as well, I think maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, the gag is that he's doing all these things because he's a sore, tired old man. So he's got basically icy hot patches and acupuncture and maybe the hot cupping, which is very painful if you've never done that.
Is Turtle doing the acupuncture?
I was about to ask who's doing. Maybe that's what that crocodile on the deck chair was doing.
maybe it's the crocodile.
I also love when he powers up, his like band-aid on his forehead like pops off.
Yeah.
You know, that's something we see a lot more in Z, I think, when people go like Super Saiyan, they just flex and clothes like expand or flies off.
It's not shown until somebody loses a shirt.
Yeah. And this time it's wild because the first time it's Roshi. Roshi gets to lead the way. But yeah, no, this is a great episode for Roshi because yeah, you realize, like John was saying, he's more than just a gag character, but he's still very much a gag character. But we're gonna, you know, he's gonna train Goku. We're gonna see a lot more of this guy within the next 5 to 6 episodes.
I also just want to kind of point out that little moment with Roshi realizing that Gohan is dead.
Yeah.
Like that, because Gohan clearly was able to get word to Roshi about Goku's existence. But somewhere in between there, Gohan dies, and Roshi had no idea about it. And that did feel very sad.
we know that Roshi knows more about Goku than Goku knows about Goku, because at the start of Z, it's Roshi that's like, oh, by the way, you're like an alien, like that actually is your brother. You hit your head when you were a baby. Your grandfather told me all about this. So we know later that Roshi has been appraised somewhat. I assume there he probably hasn't talked to Gohan in like anywhere from 2 to 5 years, something like that, maybe even longer. But that just seems about right because Roshi's all the way in Turtle Island and in the Kame house, and Gohan's on Mount
Yeah.
Paozu, what they call it. It's a kind of and Goku's kind of so nonchalant about it too. He's like, yeah, it happened a long time ago.
Yeah. Which makes
Yeah.
it even sadder because,
Yeah,
like we talked about in the last episode.
it definitely is a sad moment. I do like how they are able to sort of loop in the Gohan stuff without kind of undermining Goku as a character. You definitely get the feeling that he is still interesting and that they're not sort of pawning his development off onto a character from the past we haven't seen yet. But I think it does fit that he wouldn't know because we are definitely getting the impression, even though this world is technologically inconsistent, we haven't seen like wireless communication yet.
Yeah.
Or even wired communication, the sort of phones, really. We've seen some radio-y kind of stuff, but we haven't seen anything that would allow Gohan and Roshi to talk long distance. So it does feel that it would be letters they'd be communicating by. And I guess in a world where nearly every animal is sentient, you've got to sort of discuss with the pigeon postal union. They probably don't want to carry it.
Of inconsistent tech, can we talk about the fact that Ox King has a hover car with machine guns?
Can we talk about that he calls it his car and could not possibly fit in it? Like,
Maybe he has it like a Hot Wheel and just sort of pushes it around, going, Yum.
is it just a play car for Chi-Chi?
What I love is that we've fully established that Toriyama just really likes drawing lots of different cars. So he's going to come up with every reason he can to destroy every vehicle Bulma gets, just so he can give her a different one. Because what are we on now? Like we're 4, 5 different vehicles?
We had the
We had
motorcycle, the car, the RV, the Oolong's car. I think we're on car number 5 now.
Yeah, we're on 5, not counting stuff like, in terms of like recurring vehicles, we're on vehicle number 5.
Also, talking about vehicles, how is Poir driving his and Yamcha's car? How is that happening?
He's very good.
He's a shapeshifter. He can shapeshift those legs. We just don't see him.
Oh, I love
Poir just stretches their legs.
That's the most cursed image ever.
Yeah. Mr. Fantastic Poir with ever play Super Mario Maker and the weird power for
with the little like
the gangly Mario.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh God, I hate
going
it.
on here.
Well, I have a new sleep paralysis demon.
I hate it so much.
I remember the first time I was playing Mario Maker and that happened. I was like, what the hell is this?
Why? Why would you do that?
Can I point out, I love how Yamcha and sort of Poir are there talking about things, but they're never more than 2 feet away from the people they're talking about.
Nobody ever sees them.
And Yamcha is shouting. It's like, I know what we'll do. Yamcha, they're over the wall. The wall isn't like, it's not like a room divider. Sound travels.
Poir has a voice like a sniper bullet. Like, how do you...
I have to say, like, and it's probably because so much is covered in this episode. This is only, I believe, the second episode in the series so far without Pilaf, Shu, or Mai.
Yeah.
Which is kind of odd, given how prominent they are in the preceding 7 episodes, that they were only missing once. But they'll come back in a big way, and they'll actually come back in the chapter where they actually debut.
We're slowly approaching their actual debut.
Yeah.
Where
they keep start slipping the curtain.
Knuckling down. It is weird, but one thing I do quite like is I love the animation of the wave destroying the mountain.
Yeah.
It's so nicely animated. It just looks so good.
I mean, I think in a lot of ways they knew this is the make or break. This is, for lack of a better term. Actually, there's plenty of better terms, but I'm going to use this one. It's the money shot of the series. It's like I think Toriyama had enough foresight to know that the Kamehameha Wave would be a big deal, even if it is turned into a joke in about 1 chapter of manga or about 7 minutes later in the anime episode.
I don't know if you guys remember this, but when DBZ Kakarot came out, There was a Japanese commercial for it where you had this Japanese salaryman watching these kids running by and like talking about Dragon Ball, and he flashes back to doing the Kamehameha Wave himself and seeing that, and watching Goku do it in that way kind of made me nostalgic for trying it, because it had that same energy of being a kid wanting to do the super moves of like your favorite superheroes. And I really love how that moment with Goku feels after his amazement at seeing the Kamehameha Wave.
I think there is something cool about Dragon Ball characters passing on their moves sometimes unintentionally. Like I love that Gohan learns the Masenko. You know,
You don't
I
understand. I waited 30 years for that.
yeah, or the special beam cannon. He learns both. He learns,
Waited 30 years for the
um
Makoku Suppo.
yeah. It's really brief in the first Broly film, the non-canonical Broly film. You see future Trunks do a Masenko because he learned it from future Gohan, which is wild. But yeah, I think the idea that Goku can replicate these moves, I mean, he's very much to a certain degree is wish fulfillment in that in terms of the stuff he can do, not necessarily who he is or where he came from, but yeah, I always love seeing those early Kamehameha waves. And we see the other characters. I mean, you've made it in Dragon Ball if you can do a Kamehameha wave.
Yeah, that is
Because
true.
they start handing them out like candy by the second tournament in the series.
Yamcha was able to do the Kamehameha Wave, right?
In
Yeah,
the second tournament, him and
in the second
Krellin,
tournament.
Tim, Krellin, and Tien all show that they can do it in that tournament. And it's like, oh, how hard is this?
It shouldn't be that hard.
I like the idea though, like all this supernatural power is actually pretty simple. Just no one's kind of bothered to try. It was just Roshi because which does have that kind of if you sort of read sort of old kung fu novels and old kung fu films, that is kind of a thing that happens in those quite often. In that you can have these supernatural powers and do these supernatural things. You just have to kind of be willing to do them, and that's why sort of a monk like Roshi, even though he's not a very good monk, can do it. But most people just don't bother because they have jobs. They don't have time to ponder the universe and embrace its energies. So I quite like that. It just becomes this more known thing.
The other thing that I think kind of talk about is, we get that information. We heard about it a little bit in the previous episode, but we also get the information that Ox King and Gohan were practically brothers. And that I love that kind of thread. Like we talked about it a little bit already, but I love that kind of thread where everyone Goku meets after a certain point has some kind of connection to him. And then that connection continues when he marries Chi-Chi much, much, much later on. And I think that even though you can tell that Toriyama wasn't really planning on this continuing in a certain way, you can see why like we talked about the pacing too. We can see why the pacing works so well because everything blends very beautifully. There's a certain mastery of that, and I think that's just really gorgeous.
We're kind of pairing found family with then Goku's actual family as time goes, which I quite like. So yeah, so he got Bulma's or the sister figure, and now he's getting the uncle figure and the father figure, and they're building a family around him. And while they're doing that, also building what his actual family was. It's very like sweetly done. Again, it's amazing how smooth this all is. Because you can count how many times an anime has done the your father, and it feels like an absolute cop out. Here, it just feels so natural.
Looking at you, Bleach.
Yeah, it's definitely earned. It's not like suddenly finding out that Princess Leia is Luke's twin sister 2 movies or by a third movie.
2 movies and 1 kiss in.
Yeah, just like, oh, okay, all right, I guess, sure. I guess she's the only other like major female character at this point in the franchise. Fine.
You should have cast a second one before this point.
Yeah.
If we're getting into the Star Wars conversation, you know that things are about to go south.
Yeah. I mean, I guess my question here to kind of before we go into final thoughts is what is your favorite Kamehameha wave?
Ooh,
Ooh,
For me, it's probably the warp Kamehameha wave that Goku does during the Cell games.
that's
yeah,
a good one.
that one's got. I love how brutal that one is,
Mm.
especially I think for me when that kind of happened in continuity, I was kind of falling out of love a little bit with the fight scenes, but that one just had that just it just felt like an actual I want you to die now
Yeah.
move, and I just loved it.
What about you, John? What's your favorite Maya Wave?
I just said it was that
Oh,
one.
it's that one?
Yeah,
Oh, I guess I'm the odd man out. My favorite Kamehameha wave is actually the one in the Saiyan saga, the beam struggle with Vegeta. That whole moment, like that to me is what made Dragon Ball Z Dragon Ball Z. Like that clash of the Gallic gun and the Kamehameha wave, and it looked phenomenal. I think it's some of the best animation in the early parts of Dragon Ball Z where that happens and Goku is like doing the whole Kaioken thing. It feels so good. It feels so good.
Yeah.
the Kamehameha Wave has always been very tactile, and I think that's why it's so memorable. And people want to do it because it looks like it would feel good.
Yeah.
It has a weight that other sort of anime beam attacks lack because most of them just look like you're pointing an LED at someone. But the
Yeah,
Kamehameha it
Vegeta's
does,
probably the notorious
yeah.
about that.
Oh, I think that's a
But
good place to end. We've talked about how our waves feel. I think that's when you know to end an episode. So thank you everyone for tuning into this episode. Remember, you can keep watching Dragon Ball on Crunchyroll or follow along with the Viz Media manga. We are now in the second volume. So if you're sort of buying as we go, now time to get that second volume. Thank you again for listening to DBR on CBR. We'll be seeing you again next week. I've been John Greenall.
I'm
I'm
Sam.
out. Oh, I'm Alyx. And we'll
And
see you next time on Dragon Ball.